Hey there everyone, Mazrock here, and today we're going to be talking why you should or shouldn't be playing Protection Warrior in 10.1. Before we do get into it though, please do like, comment, subscribe. It goes such a long way towards helping out the channel. If you're looking for early access stuff, videos like this video for example, is going to be a Patreon exclusive for the first 24 hours before it is live on YouTube. So there's also 10 Club exclusives, exclusive early access, and a lot of stuff like that for my patrons down below. There is a Twitch link down below if you want to join a wonderful community full of great people, and of course a Twitch link if you want to watch me stream. I stream all tanks pretty much all the time. That's kind of what I do. So if you want to see some tanks, there we go. I also do Shaman lately. That's been a thing. Whatever. Let's get into 10.1 Prot Warrior. So as you may know, at the end of 10.1, like at the end of 10.0.7, sorry, where we are currently sitting, Prot Warrior has been dethroned by Protection Paladin. Now, this has nothing to do with the strength of Prot Warrior, but due to the complete rework and buffs that Protection Paladin got to push them well over that edge. And in organized content, I still think Protection Warrior is in an amazing spot. You can do so much, but one of the big pitfalls of Protection Warrior this season is it does require a healer to know when you're in trouble and to actually heal you, because you have very little actual self-sustain. You have Impending Victory now, Indomitable, both really, really good, and of course Ignore Pain, so your health will be slowly whittled down, but when you start running out of stuff to be able to get yourself back up, you are entirely reliant on a healer to be able to do that for you. Now, there are plenty of healers that like doing that, and there are plenty of healers that don't know when Prot Warrior is really in trouble. Of course, you do have to keep up full uptime on shield block and ignore pain, so there's a lot of things to be able to kind of manage there, although shield block uptime is kind of super easy now. It's really not that difficult, and is going to only get easier with the tier set. So in 10.1, the new tier set for Protection Warrior revolves around Last Stand. So Shield Slam is going to generate, is going to do more damage, and will reduce the cooldown of Last Stand by an amount. And I say that because during Last Stand, those numbers are doubled. So I am going to be going over those numbers and more specific in the 10.1 Prot Warrior guide, so don't worry about that. I will be covering it, but just know that you reduce the cooldown of Last Stand. This also does work with Bolster. So Bolster reduces the base cooldown of Last Stand from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, and gives you 15 seconds of shield block. Now, being able to reduce the cooldown of Last Stand down to about a minute 20, minute 30 means every minute 20 you're going to get 15 free seconds of shield block just for pressing that button. Very, very nice, but on its own, Last Stand is kind of a weak cooldown, but dealing an extra 30% shield slam during your Last Stand windows is really, really nice. But where the tier set gets a little weird is after that initial 15 seconds, for 10 seconds after Last Stand ends, your shield slam gains an AoE component, right? So you hit shield slam, cone in front of you deals damage, which is actually really, really nice, but is going to offer kind of an awkward playstyle where you're going to be tracking Last Stand for when it ends, so then that way you can probably kind of add a little bit more to it. For the average player, it's really not going to matter. Last Stand is going to end, you're going to hit shield slam just like you always do. It's going to do AoE stuff. It's really, really nice, but you also have to be doing content where the mobs are, like your pulls, are going to last a minimum of 25 seconds, and until you get to a certain height of key, that's just not going to happen for some people. Right, I have been doing, I've been leveling up a shaman recently, and sometimes, like, I get a healing rain off and I put a flame shock out and mob packs are dead. Like, that's like 3 or 4 casts. Like, you don't really have time to do anything. And if those are the sorts of keys you're running, you're going to see very little value out of this tier set. But in more organized, higher end content and play, where the mobs will actually live 45 seconds, minute and a half, depending on your pull, you can actually get this off very, very well and plan around that damage, which is very, very nice. It's just weird that this is an entire 25-second interaction for the total of the tier set instead of it being something more instant or, kind of workable like that. So there is going to be some workaround having to be done there, but this is going to help the average player keep shield block uptime very, very high and very easily. It's going to be change Last Stand into a more offensive cooldown because you want that 10-second window of AoE Shield Slam, because who doesn't want AoE Shield Slam? Plain and simple. But the toolkit that you bring, like, cannot stress enough how good the Protection Warrior trees are, the class and the Spectre. Both of them are an insanely good spot where you can min-max your defensives, your offensive capabilities, how hard your bleeds hit, how hard, how easy it is to keep shield block, how much more challenged do you want shield block uptime to be, because you can opt into easy talents to keep full uptime on shield block, but you do lose some offensive value out of it. But really, it's kind of how you want to play. There are days where, like, I may play and I'm like, man, I'm really not on my best game. Take a few shield block talents. I just don't have to worry about them. I might deal a little bit less damage, but that's fine. I have my buff uptime. And then there's some days where, like, man, I am min-maxing everything perfect. I just want to do more damage. I want to go. So it definitely is some fun options there for counterplay and playstyles. Of course, you bring a stupid amount of stops. Shockwave, Stormbolt, Shield Charge, Intimidating Shout. Like, you can cycle through a lot of stops, which is incredibly nice. And of course, you can spec into a much shorter kick to almost compete with Shamans. And I've noticed, especially in Season 1, there's a lot of things that I could solo kick as a Prot Warrior and Blood DK with the right talents, where, you couldn't do that on some other tanks. Don't underrate a short kick, because they do sometimes balance these around needing some sort of rotation, like a kick rotation, where just by bringing it underneath that threshold, you can solo kick a lot of mechanics, which just takes the reliance off pugs actually using their interrupts. Very, very nice. And of course, you're just really good at not taking damage. Spell Reflect is still incredibly OP. Shield Wall is stupid broke, and being able to get 2 charges of Shield Wall on a short cooldown is very nice. You still have access to Demo Shout, and like all of the things that you have to mitigate damage is absolutely crazy. But if you're a reactive player, none of that matters. And I've said this before, but if you've taken your big tank buster hit and you've gone from 100 to 40 and you've hit Shield Wall after the fact, you kind of just wasted Shield Wall, because guess what? Usually after a tank buster, there's not a whole lot of big damage. It does happen, but you've already taken that big damage. You need to be very proactive with Prot Warrior and know when the abilities are coming and have that damage mitigation out before you get hit. That's how you play Prot Warrior correctly, and that's why sometimes you'll hear healers, oh, that's a tongue twister, say, man, this one was really difficult to heal. This one's really good to heal. And the difference those is how proactive and reactive they are with their defensives. And how, buff uptime. You want to make sure Ignore Pain's always up. You want to make sure Shield Block's always up, and things like that. So there's a lot of maintenance with Prot Warrior and a very high APM, actions per minute, because of how many buttons aren't on the global cooldown, right? You have Shield Block, Ignore Pain, not on the global cooldown at all. So you need to be generating rage to be able to use those. So you're often hitting 2 buttons at the same time, right? Because you can hit Thunderclap and Shield Block at the same time. You can hit Revenge and Ignore Pain at the same time. And these are things that you need to be doing. And sometimes they're slightly offset depending on, how your keybinds are, things like that. So there's definitely a lot of room for improvement and skill expression in Protection Warrior, especially due to how those trees are done. But just because Prot Pally has overtaken Protection Warrior in 10.0.7 does not mean that Protection Warrior has become bad. They are still incredibly strong, and if you have a healer that you trust and that Protection Warrior offers a lot of stuff that can just really work out well, especially you do have a full AoE interrupt, which is incredibly nice, that taunts everything. You do have a lot of utility, a lot of stuns. Rallying Cry is still really, really good. A little bit better in Raid than it is in Mythic Plus, but that's just due to the amount of people. But Protection Warrior, if that class fantasy fits you and you have loved Protection Warrior in 10.0 and throughout all the subsequent patches, you're going to continue loving Protection Warrior in 10.1. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Have yourself a good one. Happy tanking.